Hey guys, it's Greg Jones for Engine Builder, and welcome to another episode of Industry Insiders. Today, our special guest is Holley's new president and CEO, Matthew Stevenson. As you guys are well aware, Holley is a publicly traded company here in the performance space with a number of very popular brands. And we're excited to talk with Matt today about taking over as CEO this summer and stepping into that role. So, Matt, thank you for joining us on today's episode. Pleasure to speak with you today.
Yeah, happy to do it, Greg. Nice to meet you.
Well, Matt, I can just jump right into it then.
Sure. Yeah.
Obviously, you came on as president and CEO of Holley following the retirement of Tom Tomlinson. We talked about it just a second ago, but are you personally a car guy? Do you have a background in cars?
Yeah. So most of my career has been automotive in some form or fashion. I left and spent some time in consumer services for a few years, but vast majority of my time is spent in automotive, either like commercial vehicles, cars, tires. The last role before this was actually school buses. So, but yeah, and then for me, what really caught my interest here, I mean, I'm an automotive enthusiast. And, when I first was contacted about the opportunity, I had no idea the breadth and depth that Holley had in terms of the products and all these amazing brands. And it's fun to work on something, you're passionate about. You get to do that as a job.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that that's something that is kind of almost mandatory for working at Holley, in your position, or do you not necessarily need to be a car guy?
You know what? I think it really helps because to be able to, I mean, we have a ton of enthusiasts here, and being able to, I don't know if I can go to toe to toe with some more guys because they're like extreme, like engine builders and people doing like, real enthusiast things. I'm probably on a 7 or 8 on a scale of 10. But being able to really speak the language, understand the platforms, understand the value that our products bring, I think it really, really is a benefit. And sometimes maybe I don't appreciate that enough, but having an understanding of the space really, I think, helps me, win over the team, but really helps us prioritize on where we're going to win for the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Engine Quest, your home for new OE type replacement and performance engine parts and cores. For our full line of products, visit enginequest.com or call 1-800-426-8771. Engine Quest, the name you trust for engine parts, cores, and recycling. When you purchase SBI valve train components, that blue and yellow box represents 40 years of industry knowledge, R&D, quality that exceeds OEM standards, and outstanding customer service, as well as a dedicated team, ready to help no matter your application needs. That's how SBI keeps engines humming.
Matt, you briefly mentioned a couple of the other companies you had been with prior. Do you want to talk a little bit about how some of that prior experience is going to help you now that you're at Holley?
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole host of Holley, the opportunities here are immense, really, both operationally and connect even closer to the consumer. So, I mean, there's a couple things, throughout my career, a lot of work, especially in my last role here at Bloomberg, on operations, supply chain, manufacturing, and just getting the operation streamlined to make sure, we're continuing to refine our costs. So we offer customers the best value proposition. And, when I look at getting closer to the consumer, I spent a lot of work over the years in customer segmentation, like really understanding what the customer wants, like where do they want to be met and what channel, right? Like what do they want to work on, in our case, platforms, like what inspires them to make a purchase decision, and how do we really resonate in how we're positioning the products. Spent a lot of time with that at Bridgestone and some other roles in the consumer space, just really understanding through data, through market segmentation, like what matters to the customer. And, as Greg is, we're no longer a small company. And, a lot of the companies in the automotive performance aftermarket, are like entrepreneurial led. These founders have led great businesses, are really close to the consumer, and understand their product or widget or what have you for the space. When you get to be a big company, you have all these great brands and all these great products, you have to put in processes and data, because no one person can steer X amount of, nor should they, right? It's really having the right processes and data and market segmentation that empower the teams to really define the opportunities and how we're running the business going forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's well said. So Matt, obviously, you've got this background helping companies organizationally, financially, in both growth and in turnarounds. You've been at Holley now as president and CEO for about 6 months. Obviously, I've talked to CEOs in the past. Those first 6 months to a year are crucial for, coming in, understanding the business, finding what those things are that you want to, really latch onto to either grow, or the things that you need to latch onto to turn around and fix potential problems. So you want to talk a little bit about your first 6 months and just what some of those initial thoughts are or initial goals are for you that you've seen so far?
Yeah. And, for me, Greg, it's really, I'm a big believer in servant leadership. And my job is, I look at it, really simple, right? Like, how do I support our employees and take down roadblocks to make them successful? And as well as, making sure we're painting the proper vision and creating a great place for our employees to work. And to do that, you really have to understand kind of what's going on. So in the first, 90 days, especially, I went and visited nearly every one of our locations. I got out to see a number of our large customers. And then it was great timing too, because in my first really 90 days, we had all these consumer events relative to LS Fest, Ford Fest, Mobile Party, et cetera. So really got to see firsthand what we're doing, what some of the customers are doing, as well as, attended some larger consumer events that we don't host as well, just kind of get an idea of what's going on. And, to me, that really helps understand, okay, here's what our customers are saying, here's what our employees are saying. And, and when I say customers, consumers, and of our distribution partners. And so what are the opportunity areas? What are we doing really well? And then how does that help inform the strategy to go forward? So really, the opportunity at Holley is just tremendous in terms of, as you can imagine, this company has grown so fast, some organically, some more inorganically. It's really putting together that professionalization around how you, and I touched on it a bit, how do you go from a smaller company that operates one way to now a much larger company? And how do you put in those processes, resources, and kind of data-driven approach to kind of actually speed things up, right? You want to kind of, because you got to get all these inputs and you got to prioritize and you got to accelerate, right? And so that is really, I think, the huge opportunity for us operationally in our organization, is just getting all these kind of connective tissue built that a larger company needs as we prepare to grow even more. And the other big unlock for us, and really looking at the industry does, listening to our teammates and listening to consumers, is what we've done on the organization is setting up these consumer verticals. So the world of the aftermarket performance products, frankly, is confusing unless you want to spend hours researching your car, your platform, what's available, what's the best thing. Like, it's tough. Like, it's really tough to sift through, because there's a lot of great and interesting things in our space. And when I started to look at everything that Holley has, we have brands that do a great job in Euro, like Dynan and APR. We have brands that are up and coming in off-road, like Arizona Desert Shocks. We have brands in modern muscle. And historically, legacy Holley focused a lot on classic truck, classic muscle, and a little bit of modern muscle. And where we focused, we did really, really well. But when you start looking at these other products and brands that have become part of the company in the last 5+ years, like, they haven't really been I'd say, as much as focused as kind of what we historically have looked at. So what we said, look, this is a $40 billion space and we're going to grow. We got to really get focused on understanding the consumer, like understanding, Greg, if he buys an F-150, or understanding Greg if he buys a BMW, or understanding Greg if he buys a Honda Civic, and say, how's that consumer want to be met, right? It's back to the market segmentation. How do they get informed? What channels do they shop through? What products are they interested in? Where do they spend money, right? And making sure we're serving up the products for them. And we have an opportunity here that no one else in the space does. We cover a ton of categories. So if you think about, we set up these 7 verticals: classic, muscle, classic truck, modern muscle, modern truck, Euro, import, and off-road. And so we have leaders now that look across and say, or look across, but in their verticals, and say, what are the platforms that are being modified? What are consumers buying, the enthusiasts, in terms of the vehicles? And then working with our category leaders, and those would be, fuel injection, exhaust, tuning, you name it. We have 10 categories. And then they say, hey, consumers that are buying a 2024 Mustang want this in the performance aftermarket. And then work with our category folks to build it. Or people that buy a new M2 want these products on their vehicle. And so it's really getting closer to the consumer and presenting a full comprehensive solution set, which we have the ability to, frankly, that no one else does. And you see it going on in the distributor side. You see folks like ECS, great customer of ours, they focus on Euro. You see Real Truck focuses on modern truck, right? And so at a distributor level, you see people kind of packaging up info for the consumer, because again, it's that confusing world. They're trying to make it easy for people to shop. What we're trying to do is, since we have so many categories and products, get vertically focused so we can then package it up to our distributors and consumers that then, gets positioned to the market. So I think that's just a massive opportunity for us. And we know where we focus, we do a great job, and it's just putting in that focus in the other verticals.
Yeah. And Matt, I'm glad you brought that up. I actually had a question, along those lines, because I know that market segmentation was kind of a recent announcement for you guys, and a promotion for Sean Crawford into I'm going to blank on his actual title, lead product manager.
Yeah, chief product officer. Yeah,
product officer. Thank you. So Matt, what exactly is the difference between kind of the way Holley had been doing it to now with those verticals in place? You mentioned data, I'm sure, kind of being a big part of just understanding those consumers you were just talking about.
Yeah, and I think it's just that natural evolution of being more entrepreneur type led, even though, it wasn't, Tom didn't own the company. He was a passionate enthusiast, and he acted like a founder entrepreneur, right? And so the company really grows under that. And then it gets to a point in saying, okay, wow, there's a zillion products we can bring to market. You got to prioritize. Resources are precious. So really understanding that market segmentation back to kind of those 7 verticals, understanding where the dollars are spent. What I mean by that is kind of a simple equation is you have vehicles in operation. Just think about the total pass car truck world.
Yep.
What platforms do enthusiasts buy? That's a subsegment. What categories do people want to modify on those vehicles? And then how much are they spending in those categories? And so you can think of it, suddenly you become a heat map that says modern truck exhaust. Boy, that's a big area where a lot of consumers want to buy products. How do we serve their needs, right? And that is kind of that evolution that we're doing of market segmented, using data to prioritize our resources. Not only because, we're a company, right? We want to make sure we're investing in the right return on resources, but we also want to serve the enthusiasts. We don't want to make products for 1 or 2 people. We don't want to be niche-y. We want to make sure we're serving up products that have demand. People, we want to be able to serve as many enthusiasts as possible.
Yeah. Excellent. So Matt, obviously that's been a big goal of yours and of the company's here recently. How about some of the challenges that you guys might be facing? Maybe something that you as a CEO is paying attention to, and does it differ for what challenges you're facing versus what the company might be facing?
No, I think, for us, it's just when you're driving change, right, and you're evolving as an organization, change management is always incredibly important. Communicating with our employees, explaining the why, very important. And the whole thing is, how do we make sure we stay close to the enthusiasts? How do we make sure we keep that entrepreneurial spirit that made the company great as we continue to evolve and get bigger? And so it's the other thing too is the team at Holley. I mean, these people just want to win. I mean, we have a ton of enthusiasts. It's funny, like whether it's like Pam in purchasing or Shane, like you go to people that have been here and you're like, oh, whose car is that? They're like, oh, that's mine. What do you mean that's yours? Like Pam's like, oh yeah, I race that with my husband on the weekends. And I'm like, it's like amazing, right? But it's just also, hey, we're not a $50 million company anymore. We're not a $100 million company anymore. We're not a $200 million company. Like we're nearly 700 million on our way to much bigger things. And as we do that, we gotta, it's that old adage: what got us here isn't going to get us there, right? You got to make sure we're continuing to evolve. So I think that just the change management, like anything, we're all humans, and these people have many, been here with a long time, but they want to win, and they also understand we got to start doing things a little differently and get better organized as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Matt. Again, you mentioned earlier and just a second ago that Holley is no longer quote unquote small company. You guys are getting quite large and have even bigger aspirations. Part of that a couple of years ago was Holley going public. Along with was it Empower Ltd. Merging with you guys, which is an acquisition company. My question for you, what are your thoughts on private equity's place within this industry and what you've seen over the years with some of the private equity firms coming in and merging and acquiring some of these companies? Do you view it as good or bad, or where do you kind of fall there?
Yeah, I look at it as an opportunity on a number of fronts. One, you had a lot of great entrepreneurs that didn't have succession plans. And if you have a private company, I mean, ultimately, if private equity was not in the market, their options for them in individually who built great businesses and their employees would be very limited, right? I mean, having that capital come into the market and offer these businesses kind of the next 50 or 100 years or whatever it is, I mean, that's effectively what it's done, just because some of these folks didn't have succession plans built in, right? Whether they didn't have kids, their children weren't interested, or they didn't have a number 2 or 3, what, you know what I mean? Like there was a lot I saw in this industry that just offered an opportunity for these people that built great businesses. Also, the world of investments and performance parts, it continues to increase, right? And being able to bring great products to the enthusiast takes more and more resources, more and more capital. And having that capital and having some of that private equity influence to take great companies and make 1 and 1 equals 3 by combining the resources and continue to move that forward. I think that's also been critical to our space. I mean, Holley, has been private equity investors for quite a long time now, and as part of that, they're still part of our company, even though we're public, and it's just helped Holley, be who we are today and helping us acquire all these great brands and products to be able to serve the enthusiasts in the way, we just talked about we're moving towards.
Yeah, no, and I definitely agree with you on a number of the things you just said, especially when it comes to the business owners who might not have had that succession planning. How about when you look at the customer level and the engine builder level in particular, where these guys maybe have been seeing, kind of a downgrade in perceived quality or lead times obviously over the last few years, and obviously there's a whole host of issues from the last couple of years. But
Yeah.
what's kind of your message to those folks who might think private equity is that more of an evil than a good thing?
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned it, Greg, there's just a lot of noise over the last 3 years. You had supply chains that were probably the worst, hopefully the worst in my lifetime. I don't want to ever see that again, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you had massive inflation in commodities and component costs. So I think a lot of that noise is people saw, wait a minute, I couldn't get my parts, and then my costs went up double-digit percent. That must be because of XYZ. No, it was because of inflation, and it was because of global supply chains that were a mess, all caused by COVID and all. We go on and on. So I think there's just a bunch of noise in that. But we spend a lot of time as a team. And in fact, I'd say part of the bus becoming more customer focused is not just on the consumer side. It is on all our partners on the B2B side. And, it's for, those that are the e-retailers, those that are the tier 2 distribution that serve a lot of the engine builders. It's like the customer support. We're continuing to improve our answer rates and tech support for folks like the engine builders to make sure we have those resources in place for them there. So I say, at least in our mindset, our job is to increase customer service to all our customers where they fall kind of, I wouldn't call it in the different subsegments of the total customer world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, very good. So Matt, as we discussed earlier, part of Holley's growth has been acquisitions that you guys have made over the years. I assume that that's still a big part of the strategy going forward. Are there specific things that you'll be looking for in future acquisitions? Is there anything that is currently kind of on the table in terms of areas that you guys are looking?
Yeah, I think, it's definitely a part of our future. I mean, we remain opportunistic in that area. We're kind of, as we talked about, Greg, taking a moment to really get the connective tissue built to really grow faster. And part of that is making sure as we require new companies in the future, we can even accelerate the integration and growth of those businesses. And for us, it really gets back to our vertical strategies. And as I mentioned, like we kick butt, classic muscle, classic truck, modern muscle. And when you look at all our growth opportunities and where that 40 billion of the SEMA spend is in kind of those verticals, for us, it's like the off-road, modern truck, Euro, import, like those we see as big growth areas for us, both organically and inorganically for verticals, as well as looking at some of those categories we really don't have a large presence in. Like we have great mechanicals, like tuning, but there's a lot of categories that we look at and say, that's not something we're in today, but makes a lot of sense because people modifying their vehicles with our other parts are looking for these parts also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. So Matt, earlier we started the conversation talking about your first 6 months, and you're only 6 months in, so you still got 6 months to go before you're done with that very first year. But what are some of those things that are still in the works as you close out that first year at Holley? And then what are some of those things that you're looking forward to even beyond that?
Yeah, hey, I mean, just the amount of focus we're putting on the customer. And when I say that, meaning, all the way across distributors, consumers, engine builders, like you name it, just how do we continue to enhance being more customer centric? I mean, and there's just a lot of things in the pipeline, as well as how we're bringing our products to market in more of a platform base for the verticals. So to be more solution focused. I mean, there's a lot of great work going on that. And, we're continuing to look at our operational footprint in terms of, how do we continue to build the best products at the highest quality? And, there's always opportunities in the spirit of continuous improvement. You always want to keep focusing there. And we're spending a lot of time on that as well. So I'd say we're working on a lot, and it's just because this is a great company and there's so many people excited about just even making it better. And so we just really want to be, we think we are, and we want to continue to maintain our leadership as, the enthusiast platform in the automotive performance aftermarket, and host the great events and the digital and consumer engagement, and and as well as making sure our partners on the B2B side are taken care of and find us the easiest to do business with and the best partner.
Yeah. Well, those are definitely big goals, and you seem to know what you're doing. So I wish you luck going forward with all of that. Matt, I did want to ask, and maybe you can't show some favoritism, but if you can, do you have a favorite, Holley product or brand that's under the Holley umbrella?
Oh man, it's tough. There's so many great brands and products. That's tough to say. I tell you what, though, our that easy level fuel center gauge, that one best engineered product at SEMA, that's pretty freaking cool. And why we love that is it's like has so many applications. It's so cost effective and solves a problem that so many people have had. Like that one's a fun new product. So, and that's top of mind just because it's received some press. But the Sniper 2, God, that's received a ton of interest, and we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth on that. I'm more of a Euro guy. I've been screwing around with Euros and older Land Cruisers over the years and other things like that. So I give a lot of love to our Dynan and APR brands too. So I think they enjoy someone that talks their language too. So if you're an enthusiast, this is the place to be. We got a little bit of everything for everybody.
Yeah. And Matt, earlier we were talking about some of the events, specifically LS Fest. Do you have a favorite event that Holley puts on?
That LS Fest is just, it's something. And what just again, not being exposed to it before, like it's not like people are putting LSs in everything, right? And so when you come to LS Fest, you see LSs in 911s, you see LSs in Datsuns, you see LSs in Fords, for God's sakes. Like, so the diversity of what we're putting into that and seeing the creativity, I mean, it's just so cool because it's I thought originally it'd be like a GM event, like all you see with GM. Yeah, and there's a bunch of Corvettes and Cadillac Blackwings and Camaros, sure, but like the enthusiast is finding a place to put an LS, and it's everything under the sun. So that to me is just great because it just shows, young, old, no matter what platform you like, they're out there and they're having fun together.
Yeah. I believe the quote is LS swap the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Well, Matt, I really appreciate the time. That's the majority of the questions I had for you. So, please let me know if there's something we didn't quite touch on, or just anything else that you guys have going on at Holley that we didn't mention yet.
Yep. Okay, we'll do. And all right, Greg, mark your calendar, man. Next September, you got to come out. The LS for the best firsthand.
Absolutely. Well, again, I really do appreciate the time, and it was a pleasure getting to meet you and speak with you. So I thank you. All right, guys. Well, that does it for this episode of Industry Insiders. Special thank you to Matt and everyone there at Holley. Make sure you guys are checking out all the different brands that those guys offer. And as always, make sure you're checking out enginebuildermag.com for more great engine content. Again, we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.